Hello and welcome back to another fantastic episode. And today we're going to be talking all about the art of building constructive long-term relationships with people online. And the reason why I want to do this as a subject is because from our experience, people often say to us, oh, online networking, I find it really hard to build relationships with people. Well, we're going to give you some top tips on how that can be done and how you can do it effectively. So Charlotte, I'm going to be interviewing Charlotte again for this interview, which I'm really excited about because Charlotte is fantastic at building those online relationships. So Charlotte, welcome.
Hello. How are you?
I feel like you're really saying welcome to the studio. You are fantastic at this. Okay. And this is why I wanted to kind of touch this. The shows this week have all been about me interviewing you. And because you are very good at those relationship buildings, it's part of your top tips for the networking that you've done recently. And there's lots of stuff that you can do online. And it is at the moment, one of the things that we find is that people really struggle to build valuable relationships and valuable connections online. I think I know why they have this problem. And for me personally, I think it's because they try too hard and they try to connect with everybody rather than just concentrating on connecting with a small amount of people, building valuable relationships with them, and then exploring those relationships. We've got a really good example of this, which is Joe Chan, who's based in Singapore.
Many examples.
Yeah, we have. And I think Joe's a really good example.
Yeah.
We met Joe at a networking group, right? That I can't remember how originally we met, but we've been working with him now for 3 years and we've never met him. That relationship is
and
built.
He lives in Singapore.
Lives in Singapore. He's soon to be launching our Singapore network group. And so that it is possible, right? And what would you say, and I'm really going to throw you under the bus with this, right? So what would you say would be the top thing that people need to think about when they're building valuable relationships online?
It goes back to my top tip, which is listen.
Yeah.
Because I think especially when you're online, which is why we've done away with 60 seconds.
Yeah.
Because I think listening to each pitch online, people switch off. You do switch off. It's a little bit different if you're in face-to-face meetings, but I think the 10-second intro, if you're online, or having very short, building those relationships in one-to-ones instead. And I know different groups do different things. They sometimes have 4 in a group and things like that. I think the quality of networking comes in the one-to-ones. The magic happens in the one-to-ones. Like you always say.
I always say that. The magic happens in the one-to-ones.
Absolutely. And I think that's where I think people, like you mentioned as well, people try and connect to too many people. So if you come off for networking and you then connect on LinkedIn, you get hundreds of requests, don't you?
And then you end up with hundreds of one-to-ones, and then you get Zoom fatigue, which is it's pointless.
But also what I was going to say about the LinkedIn, if you connect with everyone on LinkedIn in that meeting, great. But what you got to remember afterwards is following up with them. It's no point having just connections there and not talking to them. So you get people, when you've been to speed networking, especially, everyone request. And you actually don't remember who they are. So, reach out to them and say, thanks for connecting. Love meeting you in the group. Should we have a one-to-one? Another thing that I would love to say about that kind of building relationships and the kind of the online space, you don't have to book an hour. And I think with
this
Zoom
is actually
changing,
a brilliant top tip, right?
Yeah, with Zoom changing to 40 minutes free, it kind of got rid of that hour. But I think still people expect you to have that 40 minutes. You don't have to. Have 15-minute discovery.
I got an example of this, right? So I met a guy. I met him through LinkedIn, right? Through a campaign that I was doing, and I was messaging people and connecting with people. And I'm going to give him a shout. His name's Warren Parker Mills, right? Now, I decided that this guy was really interesting. He runs a podcast, which you'll find in the podcast channel, called Behind the Brand. Right, it's all about the fashion industry, right? And this guy is super interesting. Now, when I had a one-to-one with him, all right, it turned out that he actually basically created TK Maxx in the UK, right? He basically brought TK Maxx to the UK, right? Phenomenal character, phenomenal contact, phenomenal connection, right? Yet I've still never met him.
Yeah.
And he is fantastic in that kind of zone, and the connections potential there, but we haven't necessarily like
I
formed a
actually
connection.
think in the online space that you can get to know each other much quicker.
Yeah,
because you
more
have
effectively.
because you haven't got the distractions of other things. So if you meet somebody in a coffee bar and you're meeting up, there's loads of other people around you, so your eye is going to go over there and it's going to go over there, and you're going to see what they're doing behind the till, and you're going to see the cake next to you that you want, or all these kind of things is going on in your head because you're in an environment. When you are in that one-to-one online, there is only you and the other person. So if you're a very, so if you're good at listening and good at sort of asking open questions or coming back to the top tips, you're going to have a really effective one-to-one where you're going to kind of realize, what you have in common.
So I'm going to put it back in now. Okay. So we run an online network, right? And within our network platform, you get 4 one-to-ones. So that's 4 potential people that you can then build relationships with. The joy of how we run our networks is actually we create the opportunity for people to get to know each other better.
Yeah.
I think the positive side of online networking, if I'm going to be honest, is it's cost effective, it's time effective. If you manage it well and you listen to the tips, like what you've said in a previous show that we had earlier on in the week, what you can actually do is make it a lot more effective. And I think there's a value to that. But that's not saying that. So you don't, even though you've met someone online, it doesn't mean that relationship has to stay online.
Yeah.
You can take it offline, can't you? And you can then meet someone face to face for coffee and actually get to know them better. But the initial meeting has been done in a cost-effective way, and I think that's probably
absolutely
the main point.
Yeah.
So let's work on a couple of examples. We've got about 5-6 minutes left of the show, right? And I think stories for this particular show I think will be valuable. So obviously we've mentioned Joe Chat, who we've now worked with on a long period of time. Let's look at another story. So let's look at another example.
Well, another example for me is Nikki Davis. So Nikki Davis I met through another networking organization, Mark Jarvis, Mingle and Meet, which is lovely. And I never thought I would meet her in person because I knew that she mainly lives in Florida, Greece, and the Middle East.
Yeah.
And didn't realize that her parents are literally a couple of hours from where our headquarters are in Cardiff. And when she then came over to the UK, she asked if we wanted to meet up. And we actually formed a really lovely friendship as well as business relationship.
Nikki's a brilliant example. And now she's almost one of our kind of go-to mentors that we kind of ask advice around. And she comes to us and asks us advice. And we've kind of started bouncing off each other. So she's a really good example, actually, in how we took an online relationship and then developed it offline. Now, you also mentioned Mark Jarvis.
Yeah.
And we now work with Mark on a regular basis. But we've never met Mark.
No. So, and there's somebody who I really got to know throughout a couple of years. I was invited to his network. And then by just speaking to him, we became part of Sina Bounce, and we just got to know each other really quite well. I feel like I know him. I know he's going to be a granddad if he's not already now. It's about building those relationships, but it all comes back to. So I think the main thing you need to focus on if you're doing online relationships is staying in touch. That's another one of my top tips.
And I think that is actually probably more important.
Yeah, because I think obviously follow-ups and stay in touch. But what I mean with stay in touch is, you meet amazing people. I've met so many people online, and you build up a great network of people. But by just staying in touch, you're just seeing if they're okay and if they need any help with anything. You never know where that's going to lead to. And I'm not just talking about that it's going to be your next lead. It's about the relationship and what they can give and you can give them in return. So it's that two ways.
I think the important thing here, right, to really kind of bring home is there's no difference to building a relationship with someone online than there is building a relationship with someone offline.
I think it's more important online to stay in touch.
Yeah,
definitely.
But you can build the same levels of bond. I mean, the only thing that really differs is that you don't know how tall they are.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
And
mean?
you might have a little surprise when you see them.
Yeah. But then that doesn't mean that it can't be done. And I think if something came out of lockdown, I think that was probably
Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
know?
And I love, I mean, nowadays recently we have a fantastic lady, Debbie Small, who's part of our community network. She's in Australia. Now the likelihood that I'm ever going to meet Debbie in person is probably quite slim. But we have a great relationship and we work together, and you just get it. And I think we all, I hear people saying we're going back to being face to face. We're in a hybrid world and we can work hybrid environment. And that means, of course, we need to see people. We are, people like to be out and seeing people, but networking online can be a great tool to utilize much more in a time efficient way. And like you said, cost effective.
And also, I think this has been happening since dial-up, right? Like, it's not a new concept, and I don't understand why people are so frightened about it. I mean, so there was Friends Reunited. Before that, after that, then was MySpace, then Facebook. From Facebook, then came Instagram. From Instagram became, and LinkedIn was all tied in there as well.
Skype.
Skype. I mean, Skype's still around, right? Skype was what kept. Well, for those who don't know what Skype is what happened before Zoom. These principles. Then this is not brand new method of doing things, right? It's just utilizing the technology that's already available to us. To be able to enhance our relationship. But what it actually means by online networking, what it actually means is that you can be networking and building relationships with people outside of your own sphere, right? So what I mean by that is, instead of only networking in Cardiff, you can now network in Scotland. You can now network in Ireland. You can now network in Singapore. You can now network in Sweden. You can network anywhere you want and build long-term, strong relationships with people, even though you never actually see them face to face. But yet you have a face-to-face online. So you're still seeing them, you're still seeing how they breathe, you're still seeing how they think, how their eye movement. You're still doing all of that. It's not like being on the phone. And yet you can build solid foundation relationships. And I think there's an education around that.
Definitely.
Don't be frightened to meet someone online and get to know them.
Yeah. I think we've got so many examples of that, and there's so many businesses out there now that are purely online. And we've got one who actually comes from Swansea, who's not too far away from our headquarters, who I've never met, but we created a really great relationship online. She runs an online business and is a digital nomad. And when you get those business owners that know the space where they in, like digital nomads, they all, it's becoming a massive term, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's a new way of creating business opportunities further afield, and it's the hybrid world, and I think it's fantastic. I think people underestimate it and people get a bit nervous around it, and I think you just got to kind of embrace it. Yeah, that's the right word.
And I think that is the absolute word. So don't fear online relationships, don't fear online engagement. Embrace it. It is here to stay. It's if you're not willing to meet people and group people online, you're going to miss out. And I think it is going to be costly to any business who gets left behind because they're not willing.
I want to kind of add to that, because we obviously went through the pandemic. There's nothing to say, obviously, we never hope that's going to happen again. But I think you need to think about, in this, century, we need to think about, is your business able to be sustainable online?
Absolutely.
Because it could happen again, you never know.
Absolutely. And I think never say never as well. No one ever thought we'd get into lockdown in the first place. But out of that, I think what grew from that was the hybrid concept.
Yeah, and I think you gain so much if you open up to that space.
Brilliant show. Fantastic. I'm really glad we utilised this as a subject. And I think we've added some great value in that as well
We'd
from
like
our
to hear
both
from
experiences.
You. So if you're listening, we'd love to know what you think about the hybrid world and being sustainable online. Digital nomads, we want to hear from you.
Absolutely. And I think those businesses that grow and develop online as well, I'd love to have a chat with you. So please feel free to get in touch, drop comments in the comment boxes, and we will get back to you. That's a guarantee. So until next time, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you again soon. Take care.
Take care.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.